He didn't say much. Most days, he didn't need to. People always had something to say for him. They'd point, they'd nudge, they'd whisper. Sometimes behind his back, sometimes right in his face, but with a smile so fake it hurt more than the words ever could. He heard it at the mall. He heard it at church. He heard it from his own cousins at the dinner table. And each time, it landed in the same place, in a part of him nobody ever bothered to ask about. Because for them, it was just a word. But for him, it was everything. Every comment chipped away at the little confidence he had left. And they all said it like it was nothing. Fat. That's what they called him. Some laughed when they said it. Some tried to make it sound like concern. But it never felt different. Every version of it still stung. They didn't know how many nights he stayed up in silence, staring at the ceiling, thinking maybe tomorrow his body would be different. That maybe if he skipped enough meals, if he ran long enough before the sun came up, if he wore the hoodie even when it was hot, maybe then he'd be enough. But the truth is, he was tired. Not just physically. Tired of walking into rooms and feeling like his worth was up for discussion. Tired of smiling so people wouldn't ask if he was okay. Tired of laughing before the joke landed just to show he wasn't too sensitive. He didn't cry because they called him names. He cried because he believed them, because he started to think they were right. And still, they never asked. Not once. How it felt. What it cost. What it did to a 17-year-old boy trying to survive in a body that everyone else decided was too much. Coming back was supposed to feel like peace, like stepping into something familiar. But almost immediately, it didn't. The neighborhood looked the same. Same buildings, same corners, same people. But somehow, everything felt different. Or maybe he was the one who had changed. And no one noticed or cared. He hadn't even made it past the front gate before the whispers began. The neighbors who used to cheer when he walked to school now leaned in toward one another, eyebrows raised, lips barely moving, but their eyes said enough. One uncle laughed loud, slapped another on the back and said, "He is fat." The words weren't even meant to land softly. At the mall, it was worse. Behind him, familiar voices said his name. When he turned around, they looked through him, as if his presence was both surprising and disappointing. He used to be cute, one girl mumbled. And then the other, louder, he got big. They weren't talking to him. They weren't even trying to hurt him directly. That made it sting more. And then church. The place that once held his favorite memories. The choir, the potlucks, the hugs. But now even the warmest arms came with sharp tongues. A church mother pulled him in tight, called him my son, then added, "You're now fat." What happened? Her smile didn't soften the blow. She didn't even notice the way he froze in her embrace. Even home didn't feel safe. At the dinner table, his plate stayed mostly full. The room filled with quiet clinks of silverware, but no one said a thing. They all looked and kept eating. No one asked how he was adjusting. No one mentioned the honor roll certificate in his bag. The only thing loud in that room was what wasn't being said. He laughed when they laughed, nodded when they joked. Because what else could he do? He already knew that speaking up wouldn't stop the judgment. It would only make him look weak. And right now, the last thing he wanted was to give anyone more reason to look at him. There were no cameras rolling when he set his alarm for 4:45 a.m. No one cheered when he laced up sneakers with soles nearly worn through. The world slept, but he was out, pounding pavement while the sky was still dark, lungs burning, sweat stinging his eyes. That was his ritual, his secret, his punishment, his hope. He never told anyone how many times he searched the same phrases online. Words like fastest way to lose weight, how to flatten your stomach overnight, how to change your body without anyone noticing. He cleared his browser history each time. He couldn't risk being seen. The kitchen became a battlefield. Some nights he sat with his plate untouched, stomach aching but pride louder. Other nights he stood over the trash bin, tossing half-eaten sandwiches before anyone walked in. He wasn't trying to starve. He was trying to disappear from their judgments. On his bedroom wall hung printouts of motivational slogans, all taped crookedly over old posters. Words like discipline, no excuses, pain is weakness leaving the body. He didn't believe them all the time, but some days, they kept him from breaking. He spoke to the mirror more than he spoke to people. Quiet words, barely audible. You're strong. You're in control. Don't give up now. The glass never responded, but it always listened. At school, when someone offered snacks, he declined with a smile. At home, when someone asked if he was okay, he nodded too quickly. No one ever guessed he was exhausted, not from running, but from pretending. The wrappers under his bed told stories he couldn't. Late night slips, moments when hunger won. Each crumpled package felt like failure, and every morning he woke up more determined to erase it all. This wasn't about vanity. It was about dignity, about finding some way to earn back respect he didn't even understand why he'd lost. In his mind, he wasn't chasing skinny. He was chasing relief. A break from the jokes. A pause from the stares. A moment where his body wasn't a conversation. School wasn't an escape. It was just another place he had to survive in silence. The hallway buzzed with familiar faces, familiar voices, but everything felt distant. He'd walk past classmates who once shared secrets with him, now barely offering glance. When they did, it came with a smack, a low chuckle, or that look, the one people give when they think you've let yourself go. Lunchtime felt like a performance. Sit down. Unpack nothing. Pretend you're not hungry. Pretend you're busy. Pretend the silence around you is peaceful. It never was. It was just safer than joining conversations that always led to comparisons. No one said it to his face. Not always. They didn't have to. The jokes floated across the room like smoke. Light, but choking. He'd hear words like heavy hitter or built like a truck whispered behind half-covered mouths. They weren't even creative, just cruel. It was easier for them to mock than to understand. But the worst part didn't come from mouths. It came from screens. He'd scroll through Instagram and see old pictures of himself, reshared with captions that didn't ask for permission. Comments underneath with laughing emojis, flame reactions, and words like bro let himself go. People he hadn't spoken to in months tagging others, remember him. He'd check his messages and find things he never asked to see. Images edited to exaggerate his body, fake before and after shots with captions that stung more than the air in his lungs during early morning runs. Snapchat wasn't safer. Story posts with his face blurred in the background. But he knew it was him. Everyone did. The sound of laughter underneath. The overlay text that read, "Man shaped like a fridge door." Then came the message that stopped everything. No photo. No meme. Just 5 words. Yo, you need a treadmill FR sent by someone he once invited to his birthday. Someone who had eaten his mom's food and laughed at his jokes. That message didn't even make him angry. It emptied him. And somehow, the worst thing didn't come from enemies. It came from the ones who stayed silent. The friends who saw the jokes, who watched him shrink into the back of the room, who laughed a little too softly, just enough to stay liked by everyone else. He tried to act like it didn't bother him. Tried to roll his eyes, throw his head back, play along. But every laugh left a bruise. And every time he didn't say something, he lost a little more of the voice he was trying to find. The breaking point didn't arrive with fireworks. It came on a quiet afternoon. At home. In the living room. Nothing unusual. Just a visit from someone he trusted. The kind of friend who'd known him before the growth spurts, before the pain behind his smile, before every room started to feel like a mirror. They talked like they always did. Joked about old teachers. Rewatched clips from games they used to play. Laughed at dumb videos. The kind of day that should have been safe. Then it happened. Quick, careless, sharp. Bro, you are fat now. The word came out with a laugh. Like it was funny. Like it was harmless. Like he hadn't heard some version of it 100 times before. He didn't laugh. He couldn't. His face froze. Muscles in his jaw tightened. His hands, motionless. Something inside him sank. Something else rose. There was no warning. No slow build-up. Just a moment. Then a voice he barely recognized came out of his own mouth. Don't ever call me that again. The room fell quiet. His friend's smirk faded fast, replaced by wide eyes and confusion. But he wasn't yelling. He wasn't dramatic. He was done. It wasn't just about that one sentence. It was everything behind it. Every skipped dinner. Every silent cry. Every day he tried to forgive himself for being born into a body he didn't ask for, only to be told, again and again, that he was less because of it. He stood up, walked out, didn't slam a door, didn't throw anything, just left. Not because he was angry, but because staying would have hurt more than walking away. And his friend sat there, alone, unsure of what just happened. But for him, it was Clay. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't friendship. That was betrayal wearing a hoodie and a grin. He hadn't planned to talk about it. Not ever. He was used to swallowing what hurt. Used to hiding behind jokes or pretending he didn't hear what was never meant to land kindly. But silence, over time, gets heavy. And eventually, it starts to crack. The next day, his friend came back. No jokes. No smile. Just a look. The kind people wear when they know they're messed up but don't have the words to fix it. They sat in the room. Same couch. Same A. But everything felt different. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then his friend finally said it. I didn't mean it like that. That's when something broke loose. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His word came slow, but full. Full of the nights he spent pushing himself past exhaustion just to feel a little control. Full of the days he skipped meals, hoping maybe hunger would make him smaller, easier to accept. Full of the moments when he smiled in public and fell apart the second he got home. You think it's just about food, he said. It's about feeling like I have to earn respect just by changing how I look. Like nothing else about me matters unless I take up less space. His friend didn't interrupt. Just listened. For once. Really listened. He talked about how hard it was to be told you're too much, too big, too loud, by people who claim to love you. About how the pain didn't come from strangers, but from the ones who said they were close. He said he wasn't looking for pity. He just wanted to be seen. As a person. Not a punchline. Tears came. Not all at once. First in his throat. Then his chest. Then down his face. And still, he didn't stop talking. Because for the first time, someone sat there and let him finish. And when he did, his friend didn't offer advice. Didn't try to fix it. He simply said, I didn't know. I'm sorry. It didn't erase the hurt. But in that quiet moment, something shifted. The weight didn't vanish, but it felt lighter. And for a boy who had carried it alone for far too long, that was everything. Healing didn't arrive with applause. There was no grand moment. No spotlight. No instant breakthrough. Just small shifts. Quiet decisions. A different kind of effort. Not to change how he looked, but how he lived. He still ran. But now, it wasn't punishment. It was rhythm. breathing in, breathing out, letting the morning air remind him that movement didn't have to be about shrinking. It could be about showing up for himself. His playlist changed. His thoughts, too. Instead of chasing silence, he began listening to his own voice, the one that had been drowned out for years under everyone else's commentary. Now, it whispered different things. You're enough. Keep going. You don't have to hurt to be worthy. At home, the mirror no longer served as a judge. It became a checkpoint. Some mornings he looked and nodded. Other mornings, he just walked past. And both were okay. He picked up a journal, not because someone told him to, but because he had things to say that didn't fit in conversations. Pages filled with memories, questions, reminders, none of it polished, but all of it real. He returned to school spaces he once avoided, clubs he used to love but left behind when he felt too visible. He stood near others again, slowly, said yes when someone asked if he wanted to join a group project, said no when a joke came at his expense. That no felt bigger than any weight he'd ever lost. His younger cousin came over one weekend, poking his own stomach in the mirror, frowning. That was the first time he talked about body image out loud with someone who wasn't a friend. He knelt down, placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, and said, "How you treat yourself matters more than how anyone else sees you." He didn't say it like a speech. He said it because he finally believed it. And slowly, things began to feel different, not because the world changed, but because he was no longer fighting it with self-hate. He was learning how to live, not to impress, not to earn approval, just to be. He never intended to be an example. He wasn't chasing attention or trying to lead anything. He was just trying to make it through the day with his dignity intact. But when you begin to live honestly, people notice, even the ones who never asked how you were doing. One afternoon at church, during teen fellowship, someone brought up bullying. He didn't plan to speak. He sat with his arms folded, head low. But when a girl mentioned how hard it was to feel comfortable in her own skin, something stirred inside him. He raised his hand, shared a sentence, then another. Before long, the room went quiet. Not out of shock, but out of respect. He didn't cry. He didn't need to. His voice carried weight because it came from a place too many had buried within themselves. Afterward, a classmate pulled him aside. Someone he barely spoke to before. She said, "I've been trying to love myself for years. You helped me start." He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Sometimes that's enough. That night, he opened a blank page on his phone and wrote down parts of his story. Not all of it, just the parts he was ready to release. No names, no revenge, just truth. He posted it anonymously, walked away from the screen. By morning, it had spread. Dozens of comments, some from people he hadn't spoken to in years, others from total strangers. Messages that began with, "Thank you," or "This hit me hard," or simply, "Me too." His words became mirrors for people who had been hiding behind jokes, filters, and silence for far too long. Even teachers noticed. One asked if he'd be willing to speak at an assembly. He wasn't sure. He wasn't trying to become a voice for anyone else. But still, it meant something to be asked, to be seen without being reduced. He started walking through the same hallways, but something had shifted. Not in how others looked at him, but in how he carried himself. Shoulders lifted, gaze steady. He wasn't waiting for permission anymore. People still whispered sometimes. That didn't stop. But now, he didn't shrink. He didn't owe anyone an explanation for existing. And that quiet confidence, it said more than any comeback ever could. He didn't wake up one day and suddenly feel whole. Healing didn't move like that. It came in waves, gentle on some days, overwhelming on others. But now, for the first time in a long while, he was no longer drowning in silence. There were mornings when his reflection greeted him with warmth instead of judgment. There were afternoons when he chose joy without apologizing for taking up space. And in the evenings, when the house got quiet, he didn't have to pretend anymore. He could just be. He still ran, but the pace was different, no longer driven by urgency or shame. His footsteps weren't a race to become someone new. They were a reminder that movement itself was a form of survival, a language his body spoke before words ever arrived. He walked through the same mall where the comments first broke him. But now, his hoodie was unzipped. His eyes didn't scan for exit signs. He moved through each stall like he belonged there, because he did. At home, his mother embraced him after dinner. No words, just arms wrapped tight around a boy who was finally allowing himself to be known. Not the edited version, not the polite guest at the table. Her son, as he was, as he is. One weekend, he played basketball with friends from school, shirt off, sweat dripping, laughter echoing across the court. He didn't think twice about how he looked. He was too busy living, too full of breath, movement, and presence to care who might be watching. Later that night, music played in his room, the kind he used to skip because it made him feel too much. Now he let it play loud. Let the beat move through him. Let himself dance. Not for the mirror, not for anyone else, just because he could. He picked up his phone, turned on the front camera, and hit record. Looked into the lens and said, "I'm not where I want to be, but I like who I'm becoming." He didn't plan to post it. It wasn't for followers or likes. It was for him, to remember, to hold on to mark a moment where shame no longer wrote his story. If this story stirred something in you, don't scroll past it. Someone out there is carrying a weight they've never named out loud. Someone laughs with everyone and cries alone. Someone thinks their worth depends on how small they can become just to be loved. Maybe that someone is your classmate. Maybe it's your cousin. Maybe it's you. Don't let this be just another video. Let it be the start of a conversation, a reminder, a mirror. Because every time one of us speaks the truth, it gives someone else permission to do the same. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because the stories we tell might be the healing someone else needs. He's more than a number on a scale. More than every label they've whispered behind his back. More than the weight he carried, both inside and out. He is becoming, quietly, boldly, imperfectly. And that is enough. To every teen who's ever felt like they were too much, or never enough, this was for you. Not because you need fixing, but because you deserve to be seen, fully, gently, truthfully. To every teen who's ever been judged, we see you.